What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch with another video now breaking down some of the secret things that were either accidentally leaked or discovered with a bit of digging in the Overwatch 2 sneak peek. The gameplay we were shown looks like 5v5 with a single tank. Sojourn's abilities are all but figured out completely, and one more special surprise that I think hardcore fans are going to be excited about. But first, Play Overwatch tweeted out that there will be a San Francisco Shock Roadhog skin to commemorate the back-to-back championship winners, highlighting Super's Roadhog. The skin looks really awesome as he dons a San Francisco Shock championship belt, and they call this skin Midas to imply that the Shock have the golden touch, with a lot of the Roadhog skin covered in gold, accented by his flaming hair. Quite a great skin, I think. But next, I want to discuss the ramifications of Overwatch going 5v5? What? You didn't see that coming, did you? Well, if you look carefully, in any of the PvP footage shown from Overwatch 2, you only saw one tank on a team at a time and 5 players total. Now, of course, they didn't draw attention to this at any point in the sneak peek, perhaps because that decision has changed. But at the same time, I do think Blizzard likes to have little Easter eggs like this in there for us to break down. And even if it's the type of decision they're just toying with, it is interesting to discuss why they would be going that direction, what effects it might have, and what their thought process was in doing so. There's so many easy answers to this that have already been revealed when Jeff Kaplan proposed the 1-3-2 experiment that the community tried out, even though they admitted from the get-go they weren't going to do it, where they superpowered the tank role but limited it to only one hero with 3 DPS. This made for very lopsided gameplay, made the tank have a outrageous carry potential, ultimately felt a bit awkward because there was a lot of DPS kind of hanging around not doing much and the tanks rolled over everybody. The truth is, putting 5v5 aside for a second, the things they've publicly said about powering up the tank role already kind of indicates this. The stats they're giving them, the passives, they're looking for the tanks to be brawlers on purpose. So it stands to reason that removing one of the characters from the team composition would afford a bit more power in one player's hand. Also, obviously, it would aim to reduce queue times, as you only need one tank player to pop a queue, but also as well, I think, reduce some of the visual clutter. I've wanted Overwatch in a 5v5 format for quite some time, because I think 6 players is a lot of abilities on screen. So Blizzard might be trying to hit multiple points in reducing it down to just one tank. The benefit of this is that players that are playing tank will likely have more fun because they're going to be gifted a ton of stats in order to compensate for the lack of frontline partner in a second tank. And the way I'd expect the team fights to go would be, instead of bombastic team fights, there's a whole nother player that's not adding extra abilities, extra health, extra ultimates. So the engagements might feel a bit more skirmishy in nature, and I think that feels accurate based on the clips of gameplay from Overwatch 2, 2.0, I should say, maybe PvP, that we've seen so far. Which is to say, they can resolve a bit more clearer because there's one less player to influence the fight. Because we've all seen those Overwatch team fights, right? Where it's like Zarya grabs fire at will, Lucio sound bearers to cancel the Genji blade, but then an Ononade comes in, antis everyone, and then another ult, and it's just a ripple effect. And the more of those abilities you have, even just reducing that by one character, it makes the impact of the individual players more significant. One argument from a competitive standpoint, though, is that it may make the tank role far too significant, because the stats you'd have to give the single player to be able to compete in that role might be outrageous, as they kind of were in the 1-3-2 experiment. So then the tank position might go from one of the 6 teammates to feeling almost like half of the team, with how important and crucial their play becomes. It can be really tricky for Blizzard to navigate this, I think. And it's the type of decision I think would definitely make the average gold to plat player happy, as they can more easily play tank, where the expectations of the role are more forgiving rather than the role being really hard and have actually a super high skill ceiling, but with a lot of power. A lot of that power is just sort of innately given to you if you have enough stats. At the same time, that might help players that are sick and tired of trying to play around bad tank players that are so crucial. I'm not exactly sure where I land on this. It's sort of the difference between the likes of a character like Wrecking Ball or Roadhog and Reinhardt, or at least let's say old Reinhardt, before they gave him this sort of new Overwatch 2 philosophy, brawler DPS buffs that went in a few patches ago. Hog and Ball mostly just have to make their mechanical plays, and anything they do for the team is sort of an extra. Whereas, if both teams have a big barrier to play behind, the team whose Reinhardt really min-maxes that is going to have a massive advantage in their teamwork. But if the devs just take Reinhardt's shield down to 800 only, and it's more about you just swinging the hammer and trying to land pins and make plays physically, sort of like a Wrecking Ball does, well then your mechanics matter more rather than your teamwork, which probably is a win, but it sounds like a balancing nightmare. So it's a change I both love, knowing what the average player struggles with, but I'm also really fearful of the ramifications it might have for the competitive PvP. But other things I wanted to point out is that I didn't really see Orisa have a bunker barrier in front of her. And although it may have just been for demonstration purposes, she sort of was just getting rolled by Reinhardt in the clips constantly. But I would imagine that just like in the 132 experiment, you can expect characters like Orisa to get a pretty sizable rework just like Reinhardt if there's only going to be one tank. When you combine this with the fact that they're removing a very complicated game mode like 2CP and adding a fairly straightforward game mode, it seems anyway, with push, which is kind of just like another version of control, I think you might argue that they're kind of simplifying the game down a bit and taking a lot of the complexity out of it by smoothing out the roles a bit with role passives, perhaps going into this 5v5 format and taking away one of the most complicated game modes in the pool. All of this might make Overwatch a bit more solo queue friendly, which is a trend that I think they've tried to do for the past couple years in Overwatch 1, removing and powering down a lot of the high teamwork stuff to try to emphasize individual players' landing abilities and attacks. Now that's resulted in things in Overwatch 1 like main tanks are basically next to useless almost, despite a lot of players wanting to play behind that reliable barrier. They're not very powerful, even after the insane Rein buffs. So that's sort of a downside, but the upside is that players have a lot more room to land their own plays, at least on the characters that are built to do so. So that could be a very good thing for Overwatch 2, potentially. A couple other things I wanted to break down. It was found in the blog post summarizing the Overwatch 2 sneak peek. A pretty interesting screenshot had a very minor detail that may have leaked a very large announcement. On the player card for our Junkrat, underneath their battle tag is Clan C9, which is a bit of an in-joke from the early days of Overwatch competitive, where the team Cloud9 was famous for forgetting to maintain objective control and losing in overtime because of it, even when they were winning the team fight, just forgot to step on point and then losing the game. But enough of a history lesson. Is there going to finally be the BattleNet-wide clan system by the time Overwatch 2 comes out? Remember, they've added a ton of developers on for this project. They went at lengths to describe that that was the case in the sneak peek itself. And for years at this point, Jeff Kaplan and the devs have been saying that they aspire to eventually make a clan or guild system, but want to do it systematically throughout all of Blizzard games and put them together. So there's interconnectivity between all their IP, which is something that they of course attempt whenever possible, especially with like the BlizzCon cosmetic packages. And I think it's very reasonable that that type of feature could go live with Overwatch 2. Because think about it, the whole game is built to play with friends and play missions repeatedly. In the sneak peek itself, one of the very first things they said is that Overwatch 2 is a game for all of my friends who play Overwatch. It will give everyone a chance to play something, whether it's the competitive PvP, the campaign, or grinding out the RPG systems with the hero missions. So what better time than then to also release a Blizzard global clan system that helps draw your friends in and easily play with them to do these things. We've seen these types of clan systems with a previous game that was on the Blizzard launcher for a little bit of time, Destiny 2. The Overwatch 2 PvE stuff is massive in scope. The clan system, I could be wrong, but just doesn't even feel more outrageous than the things they've already shown us they've worked on, right? The missions look really in depth. The talent trees have a lot of depth to them. The gameplay is just upgraded in such a big way from the last time we've seen it. It seems like a no-brainer to me that a guild system may come. And last up, I wanted to break down Sojourn's hero kit, at least in the state that it was in the sneak peek. If you piece together the combination of clues, we can get a better idea of what her abilities are, at least in this current build. First of all, her mobility ability was shown in this early concept art screenshot, showing off a power slide. And I'll also note in the cinematics, she's doing all sorts of jumps. So who knows exactly what this looks like in game and what it can do, but some sort of slide or jump seems to be on the table. In my head, just doing a forward slide sounds kind of weak, so I almost wonder if it like also might propel her into a jump. But maybe Sojourn is a sniper with limited mobility, which would be a first for sniper class characters in Overwatch 1, at least how they've gone to rework Hanzo and Widowmaker. But the thing that was really obvious was the charge up railgun mechanic that they explained as a pure skill shot. It looks like when you use it, it depletes however much charge you have gained, maxing out at 100. The UI isn't perfectly detailed yet, so I'm unsure what button this is attached to. Perhaps you hold down alternate fire and then release when it's charged up, or maybe there's another mechanic I'm missing. It appears that you gain more of this charge based on doing damage with the normal primary fire spray down. Sojourn's ultimate has been shown in a couple different variations, but keep in mind that most of the gameplay we saw was from story mode, which seems to indicate that you could select different talents for a different ultimate anyway. As far as PvP is concerned, I'm pretty sure this King's Row clip shows it the best because it seems to be from a normal PvP game. We know Sojourn's ulting because her ultimate charge isn't going up as she gets eliminations here, but also notice how the railgun number charge has a bit of a glow to it in the center of the screen. Wait, am I crazy? Is she nanoed at the same time too? It's hard to tell because this is the only time that she uses this version of the ult, but I think it's safe to say that this is sort of a rapid fire railgun where she goes into a bit of a frenzy and it probably charges up faster than normal, which is pretty devastating considering based on how much damage it does to this half health Orisa, it's as devastating as a Hanzo or Widowmaker shot, which is exactly what everyone was asking for. More one shots, right? Everybody likes those. Well, at least if you're on the giving end, I'm sure you'll be quite excited to use this pretty nasty ultimate. And as far as I can tell, I can't find any information on Sojourn's other ability, which looks kind of like a little grenade of some kind, maybe? I don't know. Let me know your best guess of what this ability might be. And as well, if I missed anything else secret hidden inside of the Overwatch 2 sneak peek, share your findings with us in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it with a like. It really does help us out. Let us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, click subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news updates and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.